All right, we're back on domain expertise, something that everybody in the world of enterprise AI should absolutely, unequivocally be prioritizing, which I just realized, Tati, I lied. That is the one that I actually did agree with. Of all the eight, I will go on record for Mika Kaufman. That one, I will always pound the table on domain expertise. And the reason is what I want to enable you and Steve to unpack, which is there's so much nuance to understanding the difference between what symptom and cause, process improvement versus the technology versus moving a lot faster but going towards a cliff, right? Like all this stuff that comes up. And so I wanted to give you and Steve some more territory to kind of kick things off here and talk a little bit more about the importance of domain expertise and calibrating between business, technology, culture, feasibility, technical debt, Steve, versus transformation, acceleration, and velocity, all these things. So, Tati, without further delay, let it rip.
Well, it truly is one of my favorite topics as well, and something that I agree 100% that when we're talking about the ability to identify what needs to be done. So many teams are action oriented to the point of a fault, right? So this is what we got to do, and there's not a lot of places in that process in which people go, do did we re-examine our hypothesis? Are we looking at the right things? Are we even solving for the right problem for starters?
Bingo.
So
Yep.
that alone is the reason why you should be engaging very early in your process. And that's something I don't think we talk about often. At times we'll be like, oh, well, let me get started and then I'll engage domain expert. The time to engage a domain expert, arguably the entire time, but most importantly at the beginning, because you need to sort that out. You need to figure out what you're solving for. What do you want to solve for? You want to have a healthy debate on what's possible to have concurrently. That's another thing that enterprises fall into a hole often, is getting way too many priorities going. They tend to be conflicting, not in essence, but in the way that they are worked on concurrently, right? You're not looking at what staging looks like and any of that. So that's where that domain expert, and when we're talking domain expert in any of the areas we're talking about, whether it's technology, operations, customer experience, marketing, finance, you name it, the people that really know what needs to be happening are the people that need to be engaged in this process. I would dare say also that it works both internally and externally. It's a really important piece. It's not, you can't completely outsource it. You can't completely have it just inside. The ideal scenario where you have the external domain experts that know the most about how that kind of process, that kind of tool, that kind of technology works for your type of business. And then you have the experts on your business that should be working for you full time. So that's the right combo there to make the magic happen. So you can, we were laughing before about your example of, giving a 16-year-old a keys to a Ferrari with a bottle of
A
vodka.
jug of tequila, yeah, or vodka, whatever.
Not a great idea. And we do the equivalent of that in various ways. I used to have this example. I used to always say to my team, you can to go buy $1,000 pair of sneakers for someone who's never run before is not going to make them finish a marathon. It's not going to help them be faster, right? So you got to be, and even that's another thing that the domain expert does. And I want to hear Steve's thoughts on this as well. But one of the things that's really important is even knowing when you need to make that investment on the $1,000 pair of sneakers, that it will make a difference, right? What's that point of entry for the upgrades, for the updates, for the going bigger on something? Even knowing when that needs to happen comes from that expertise.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that analogy. I'm a travel softball coach, and both my daughters play travel softball, and there's kind of this saying where you can buy a player a $450 bat, but still got to be able to hit with that $450 bat. If you don't have a good swing, you're not going to be able to hit singles, doubles, triples. But both of you kind of touched on the kind of the aspects of the types of domain expertise, right? And I think as you get to a bigger company, you have more skills and more domains. But like in the marketing approach, absolutely right, Tati. There's people that know, are deep into CRM and deep into call center. Then there are people that are deep in the individual retailer or product company's brand, right? They know the essence of the brand. They know the markets that they're in. They know the ICP, ideal customer profile, right? There's all these aspects of kind of the knowing the business, knowing the brand, knowing the business, knowing the product that goes into domain expertise. And what I think it's very interesting is sort of this trend of like AI is going to replace it all. It's never going to replace it all, right? Stuff's going to continue to evolve. That that 60-70% that AI can take you will continue to bump up, and then but it'll always be that 30-40% that's going to require kind of humans to do their job, understand the client, the customers, the clients, the brand, et cetera, to really make it authentic. The other thing I'll touch on is, on the tech side, and Alec, you sort of mentioned this, which was, tech debt that exists with all these systems. And, I think there's been, in a lot of these enterprises, there's a lot of systems that have been sold and exist that sort of try to solve a problem. And what's happened over the years is those big software companies come out. They've got a software that solves a specific problem, but it's generic across all industries, right? All enterprises, all industries. So what ends up happening is you've got various different companies that try to take a generic approach and force fit it into their way of doing business and their brand and their customer service and their customer support, and it kind of breaks. So you get sold, right? Tati, you've given some examples around like having to make some decision as a business executive to somebody's going to be, solve all the problems, but in essence, you try to implement it and it's not quite there, right? And that's why large consulting companies exist. That's why industry solution consulting companies exist, to really take those generic solution approaches and implement it for a particular industry. What's intriguing about like where we are with AI, kind of bringing it back to AI, is that in tech debt, you can now kind of leave those old legacy systems where they are and then build on top of that. It's kind of this layer that not only involves your domain expertise for your business and your brand and how you do work, but also creates a compelling user experience for individuals. Those individuals could be your consumer, right, in a retail environment, right, shoppers in a store, or those individuals could be your employees, right? How do you use your systems to make it easier and better to service those customers? But AI allows you to kind of tap into those various legacy systems. The other thing that I think will change over the course of the next, probably 1 to 5 years, I was going to say 3 to 5 years, but it's going to move faster than that, is people will be able to, enterprises and CIOs and CTOs will be able to migrate off some of that tech debt, some of that old legacy systems in a faster way, because you can transform those enterprise systems faster by using the ability, AI, and the ability to tap into that data. Whereas transformation in the past used to take years. Now we're talking about being able to migrate from an old legacy system to a new one in weeks, months, whatever it may be, because you have this new tech that can basically tap into the data and transform it, and agents that can tap into the data. So you have the ability to leave stuff in place and have the agents kind of hit that tech debt while implementing the new. So it's a really interesting time, because I think transformations will be quicker. New companies new SaaS companies that enhance their AI will be leaders, and others that are old and legacy will die like mainframes, right? And we've seen that in the past too.
Yeah, that's a great answer, Steve. I appreciate that. And Tati, I want to go to you real quick on something that Steve just said right there, because I think this kind of gets at the reality of the realities. So if there's that much more speed available, there's that much more compression of time to value for transformation, for example. How do you think a domain expert should be thinking about balancing how much faster the car can go. Maybe it was a Honda Accord before, and now it's a Ferrari. How do they think about, or how could they think about transformational opportunities that can happen faster that they can then build upon to create bigger and better results over time versus picking a really big mountain to climb and just going after that from the very beginning? Like, how do you think about the balancing of those two within the confines of big businesses with all sorts of people, process, technology, culture, challenges and dynamics that are understandable, but being real about the question?
In one word, modularity.
Yeah.
They have to think about this, and this is what's different, and that's one of the things that for me was an aha moment on this. The conventional wisdom was that you as a leader, you're looking at these large roadmaps for technology, and you're looking at this 3-year, 5-year roadmaps, and you're building every tool. And I'm hearing so much of that happening today still. I'm not saying you shouldn't be looking at 5 years. I'm not saying you shouldn't be looking at 3 years. But that old model of waiting until that's done and ready to start moving forward, it's an old model, and you're going to trip it up. You're going to fall on your face. Yeah. As a team, as a company, as a business, because you cannot wait to start when that's ready. For a various reasons. One, you're not going to be able to catch up, but you're not going to be able to keep up. That 3-year plan, you're going to spend your entire time that you're building that plan just updating it for the new technology, by the way. So whoever is trying to do this right now, I've heard this through various connections and friends that's literally happening right now, right? Every meeting is a meeting to talk about what we decided in the last meeting is no longer necessarily the decision that we should take. So I urge these companies to, yes, you must have, and that's why it's really important for that domain expert to be involved from the beginning, because the most important piece is to figure out what's that North Star. What are you trying to achieve? What is your North Star? And it's clear and it's defined enough for you to be able to build something around it, but it's also flexible enough for you to be able to update that as you go, which should be the case for any company, for any type of strategy. But most importantly, at the same time, in parallel, in which you're building that 3-year, that 5-year plan, let's call it a 5-year plan, and that you're building that, you have to deploy the smaller pieces, the modular pieces. You have to test, you have to get your team's hands on it, you have to play with some of this technology. There's no reason why today that old school model that we're talking about where, somebody came and showed you this, the equivalent of this car with all the bells and whistles, and at the end with what you had and what you're able to spend on it, you're able to get the one that was completely manual, right? That was kind of there's no reason why that would happen today, but it will still happen if you don't have the correct definition of the problem, and if you don't have the expertise to map this out, but in a quick way. So you have both of these roadmaps of the short term and the long term happening. And when I say short term, you should be deploying something next month. Mm-hmm. You should be deploying something in a few weeks, which is what today's process and today's technology enables you to do in a very effective way.
Yeah, and I will add to that the AI tech is moving at such a rapid pace that if you have a multi-year strategy, it's going to be obsolete in 3 months, 6 months, because something new is coming out, right? So you have to think about it, and to use your term, modular, right? A modular approach where you can kind of plug and play certain things, and then new things come out and be able to plug them in, and that's kind of the concept of these protocols, right? That exist, and the concept of agents, they're plug and play, right? So that you can stay ahead of that, and it's going to be more agents that are industry specific as well. So.
Yeah, right on. Perfect answers on both sides, and we hit our mark. We're going to wrap this up within the 15-minute mark and rule here of LinkedIn. So thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Tati, appreciate it. Steve, talk to you soon. See ya.